Hi Paradise family. So today we are here to learn how to make the multi-compartment tote. It's a bag that I found online. The original design comes from Q-Ting Creative Designs here on YouTube. You can purchase the pattern from beadjet.com. However, we're going to talk about that pattern. There are some things in that pattern that are incorrect in comparison to the original design that Q-Ting does. And I'll put a link to her YouTube page down in the description, as well as a link to the pattern in case you don't want to make the pattern and you would rather purchase it. I did reach out to beadjet.com to let them know that the seam allowances are incorrect for this pattern, but I have not heard back. So we're going to talk about those seam allowances. I'm going to show you which ones are not correct and give you the actual seam allowances that you'll need to add to the pattern pieces, because the pattern pieces don't include the seam allowances. So the pattern calls for a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but really it's a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And if you don't do 3/8 inch, it will be wrong. I found that out making the first small one. I added just a 1/4 inch like the pattern called for, and the pattern did not come out right, and I unfortunately had to trash half of the project. So I'm going to give you all those measurements. I'm going to show you which ones you need to add 3/8 inch to, where you need to add 1/4 inch to, and on 2 pieces, you'll add no seam allowance at all. So those are important. So when you get to those sections of the video, make sure you pause. Hopefully you haven't cut your pattern out just yet, and you're going to watch this video first before you actually do that. So I want to show you the sizes of the patterns. So this is size small. I'll kind of back up a little bit. This is size small. It's just a small, and really it's just a handbag. It's not really made for a shoulder, but it does come with D-ring side connectors so that you can add a long strap to it. And I did add a long strap for this one. So this is size small. The next size that we have is significantly different in size. This is size medium, so you can really see the size difference there. Now the medium one, the straps are long enough to go over the shoulder, but again, I did add those D-ring side connectors for a long strap. So small, medium, and then our third size is size large. Now there is a huge difference between the small and the large, okay, big difference there. And there's a pretty significant difference between size large and size medium. Not much, but there is a difference. Now I made my straps a little bit different. I made these to be really long. I know that's kind of hard to see. I'm not quite tall enough, but there is a significant difference between the two. Now on the size large, I did not add those side D-rings because this bag is so big, right? It's so big that adding a long strap just wouldn't be necessary. So I did not add the D-rings to the size large, but you can if you want to. But I would consider this size to be like a small overnight bag. It is quite large. I'll kind of show you the inside of it. So this is the top of the bag. You have 3 separate pockets. So here in the center and on the side. Lots of real estate in there to add slip pockets, zipper pockets. This would be a great diaper bag. You could add pockets in there for diapers and wipes. If you wanted, you could even add pockets here on the side for bottles. Great diaper bag, in my opinion. It does have a front zipper pocket here on the front. I am changing this pocket in comparison to what the pattern calls for, because if you do it the way the pattern calls, it will not be domestic friendly. So I'll kind of show you on the medium. So on the medium, it's got like this where it kind of pooches out a little bit. These 4 corners here get very, very thick, especially if you're doing it in vinyl. So I've changed how that's going to happen and how we're going to add that so that we don't have that where it's going to stick out. Okay, so it's just going to be nice and flat here on the top and the bottom, and it lays much smoother here at the bottom. For your stabilizer, you'll want to cut all of your stabilizers out of the seam allowance, especially if you're using any type of Pellon or Decovil Light. because there are sections of the bag that if you don't cut your stabilizer out, it gets very thick. So let's kind of talk about what I'm changing. Let me find my pattern. So one thing that I'm changing, is that the pattern calls for webbing straps. As to where that'll probably be perfectly fine on a small bag like this one, I feel that the medium and the large are going to get heavy over time, right? Because we put everything on our purses. So I'm changing that, and I'm going to do vinyl strapping instead. If you were doing the large bag though, there is enough room here on the front that you could even add connectors here instead of putting it in the seam allowance here at the top. So if you didn't want your straps to be this way, you could put connectors on the side that way. So I'm going to do vinyl for this video instead of webbing. The other thing that I'm changing is, instead of cutting the separate pieces for that side pocket, we're just going to add 2 additional pieces to A41. So instead of cutting 1 of these, you're going to cut 3 of these. You're going to cut 1 contrasting and 2 lining, or if you want to do 1 contrasting, 1 exterior, and 1 lining. But you need 3 of them however you decide to do it. I will show you all of these, but I went through the pattern and I made sure that I was adding the correct seam allowances to everything. Now I give you all of that so that you'll know. So you'll definitely want to pause the video when you get to those parts to make sure that you have the correct seam allowance. Now you may want to choose to print 2 patterns out, 1 for your actual pattern and then 1 for your stabilizer. But you're still going to have to cut more away from that stabilizer because this is, the pattern itself is without the seam allowances. So when you go to do your stabilizer, you're going to have to cut at least an 1/8 inch more from that. So what I do is I just create 1 pattern and I use this to cut my stabilizer, and then I just cut away what I need to. So with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, for example, we would need to cut a 1/2 inch away from the side edges for a stabilizer, so that it's a 1/2 inch away. And that's just so everything will round around the seam allowances just fine. You'll notice anywhere there's a zipper, it's going to be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. 2 pieces though, there are 2 pieces that you will have sections of the pattern that will not have a seam allowance. Pattern F, this bottom section has no seam allowance added to it. That's big. If you add a seam allowance to this section here, the width of this zipper gusset will not be correct, and you'll end up having to either A, trash it, or B, do some serious cutting down to make it fit. So very important, piece F, that bottom section does not have a seam allowance to it. And then piece G, same thing. Piece G, this straight edge here does not have a seam allowance added either. You'll add 3/8 inch to all the other sides, but not this side here. Also piece G, and I mentioned this as well, you'll need 2 the way the pattern is and 2 mirrored, okay? So 2 regular, 2 mirrored. So there's a lot of pieces to cut. There's a lot of zippers to this. So grab some good zippers, some good zipper pulls, some fantastic vinyl. The vinyl that I'm using today for the pattern comes from Creative Critters on Facebook. But you can also get vinyl from Peanut Gallery Market on Facebook as well. And then I'll also be using Coats & Clark Outdoor Thread and Coats & Clark Heavy. And then, of course, any of your cotton pieces, you'll need to interface as well. So cut your seam allowance, or add your seam allowance to your pattern based off of what I'm going to give you. And then cut your stabilizer out of the seam allowance by a 1/2 inch where it's a 3/8 inch and 3/8 where it's a 1/4 inch. And that'll, everything will come together nice and smooth. It'll look great. So let's get started. Okay, so now that we've got all of our pieces cut and ready to go, I did do a couple of things ahead of time. I did go ahead and top stitch my D-ring strap. This is just a one-sided strap or one-sided piece. D-ring, we'll end up cutting this down into two 3-inch pieces. I did go ahead and top stitch my straps as well. Again, I'm using vinyl, but you can use whatever type of strapping that you would like to use. Vinyl, webbing, cotton, chain, whatever you choose. So we're going to start out with our front pocket. So we need piece A3, your zipper, both pieces of A2. So A2 and A41. Remember, we're changing this and you need 1 contrasting and 2 linings. So go ahead and pull out your contrasting and your lining piece for A41, as well as your zipper, and go ahead and set A3 and A42 off to the side for now. I've already found the center for my zippers on either side. Go ahead and find the center for your pocket on the top and the bottom. And take note that this isn't quite a full square. It's actually a little bit longer than it is wide. So make sure that you're noting what is the top. So kind of show you what is the top and what are your sides. All right, so go ahead and find the center of those. I'm just going to make a little notch here on the top and the bottom. Side isn't too important. You can if you want, but you don't have to. And on my contrasting piece, okay, so just like that. So now you should have your center and your bottom center marked. Okay, go ahead and grab your zipper. I like to use double-sided sticky tape, so I'm going to add some double-sided sticky tape to my contrasting piece, just right along the top edge. We're going to add the zipper to this. So first you want to add your zipper to your exterior piece, right side of zipper to right side of panel. And then I like to do things in sections, so instead of basting this zipper in place, I'm just going to add another piece of double-sided sticky tape right along the top edge. Peel that backing. And then add my lining piece to it. Right side of lining to right side of exterior. We're just going to sandwich that zipper. Okay. So just like this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch this edge here at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so now we have added our zipper to our contrasting A4-1 piece. And then I went ahead and turned it wrong sides together, top stitched along this top edge here, and then base stitched around the edges. So now you want to pull out your last piece of A4-1. And we're going to find our centers. So find our top center here. Go ahead and find your bottom center as well. Probably something that should be done before you do all this, but I like to do it here at the machine. Okay, so now we want to add a piece of double-sided sticky tape right to the top part of our third piece of A4-1 or front pocket. And then we're going to add this piece right on top and just baste it in place. And just baste this zipper down for the moment. Okay, now you want to go ahead and grab your zipper pull, and let's go ahead and get our zipper pull on. I just do this by hand. You can use your thingamajig if you've got one. So now you've got your zipper pull on. So now we're going to baste down either side here. Okay, you'll have some overhang here at the bottom. You'll need to trim that off with this piece. So just trim off any of that contrasting that you may have and then baste stitch across the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now that we have that front pocket piece sewn, baste stitched it all the way around, and we've trimmed our bottom off, we need to go ahead and pull out pieces A4 to left and right side. Go ahead and put your pattern out of the way. And we're going to be attaching these side pieces to our front pocket piece, so just like this. So we're going to line up our bottom and our top, and we want to sew this at 3/8 inch seam allowance on both sides, and then we're going to fold them out with the seam allowance pointed to the side, not pointing in but actually pointed to the side, and then we're going to top stitch it. Okay, so now that we have our front pocket piece sewn, we've got our side connectors on and top stitched. If you end up with a little bit of zipper tape at the top like I do on mine, I think my zipper tape is a little bit wider than what it normally is. Don't trim that off, leave that right where it's at. It's going to get caught in the seam allowance. So now we want to pull out piece A3. I'm going to go ahead and mark my center on the top and bottom. And then you're going to add your bottom. So this long edge here is your bottom. We're going to add that to the top of our front pocket here. Line up your centers. Get that clipped in place. And then the corner of your edge should be matching up with the corner of your side panel. Okay, so just like this. So now we're going to take and we're going to sew this top edge here at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to flip this up, have our seam allowances pointed up, and top stitch. Okay, so we should now be done with the front panel. I apologize for the beginning part of this video. I did not realize how close the camera was, so it kept going in and out. So I've corrected that, so hopefully this is a little bit better. But we should be done with front panel. We've got our nice zipper pocket on here with our zipper pull. Because I do this as a drop-in lining, we need to add some marks to the top part of panel A. So I've marked down 3/4 of an inch because we're going to end up folding this down and doing a drop-in lining rather than doing a birthing method. I have found that doing the drop-in lining is far easier than trying to birth this big bag and having 3 different pockets to birth. It's It's a little crazy, so I have found it easier to just drop the linings in. So we want to mark 3/4 of an inch on the front panel. We want to mark 3/4 of an inch on the back panel. Okay. And then we also need to mark 3/4 of an inch on the top lining panel as well. So 3/4 of an inch down on that. Go ahead and set panel A2 to the side for now. Grab your back panel piece, and we're going to add the straps to this. Hopefully you've already top stitched your straps. If you're using webbing, then you should already have it cut. We need to go ahead and add our straps to our panels. So on size medium, which is the bag that I'm doing, we're going to mark 2 3/4 of an inch to either side from the center. So from the center out, 2 3/4 inch. If doing size small, you'll want to mark from the center out 1 3/4 of an inch. And if doing size large, you'll want to mark from the center out 3 3/8 of an inch. So because I'm doing size medium, 2 3/4 of an inch out from the center. Okay, and then we're going to place our strap to the outside of those lines. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that and pin those in place. And we're going to end up basting these on. Make sure your strap isn't twisted. This is the part where I always get a little nervous because I always think it's going to get twisted on me. Right, we're going to do the same thing with panel A, 2 3/4 inch out. From the center on either side. Okay. And then clip your strap in place. Again, making sure it's not twisted. Clip the other side too. And you can make adjustments before you sew it, but so just like this. Okay. You'll also want to grab your D-ring connectors. I've already cut mine down to 3 inches each, which you'll need to do. You need you'll need 2 that are 3 inches long. Grab your D-rings and attach those to your D-ring, and then you'll end up top stitching just below your D-ring just to hold it nice and snug, because if not, it's going to fall down, and we don't want it to fall down. We want it to stay nice and snug up there at the top. So you'll do that with both of them. Okay. Now go ahead and pull out piece E, F, and G. So piece E, F, and G. You should have 2 E's, 2 F's, and 4 G's, 2 on the mirror. Start with 1 each of your E and F. And 2 of your G pieces. Go ahead and set your G pieces off to the side for the moment. We want to focus on just piece E and piece F. You can see which ones line up. Okay, so that you can tell that this is my bottom, or this is my top, and this is my bottom. Okay, based off of how it's curving. We need to add a piece of double-sided sticky tape to piece E or F, it doesn't matter, whichever one you want to add it to. You could also skip the double-sided sticky tape and just clip it if you wanted to do that as well. So I'm going to do this first part of the gusset with you, and then you can do the other one on your own. So line up your centers. And then just for safety, I always add just a couple of clips just to make sure it's not going to shift on me. Okay, we're going to sew this at 3/8 of an inch, open our seams up, and top stitch. Okay, so that's what you're going to do with E and F. And then we'll do G when we get back. Okay, so now we should have our straps basted in place on our front panel, on our back panel, and we should have our D-rings top stitched, and you can see how they stay nice and in place now for both of those. And then we should also have panel E sewn to panel F and top stitched in 2 of those. So if you haven't done your other one, go ahead and do that in between, but you'll need your other one top stitched as well. Grab 2 of your piece G pieces, and you'll need 2 that are mirrored. So these 2 are mirrored pieces, okay? Grab 1 of your piece E pieces, and you can kind of see that you've got 1 long edge and 1 short edge. This long edge here is going to match up with piece E. This short edge is going to match up with piece F. Okay, so we want to take and line up that longer edge with piece E, and we're going to take it toward just kisses the top, not by much, just a little bit. You can also, because when we sew this, you want to sew this to where when you stop here in this point, you're stopping right in between this seam here. So if you even want to take a pin and kind of stick a pin through it, and make sure that you're going to end up right where you need to be, you can kind of do it that way too. So you can see that when your needle stops in that corner, you're going to be right in that seam. So that's the way I like to do it, because there is no marking down 1/4 of an inch or marking down 3/8 of an inch. I've tried doing that both ways, and it just doesn't seem to matter. So I just take a pin in it and make sure that that pin is right in the center, because that will matter. Okay, so now we're going to sew on this line, which is a 3/8 of an inch line. It's important to draw this line in, because this part here is going to get in the way when you come down. So we're going to sew on that line all the way down right to where these intersect at, okay? Right to that corner. Don't go past that corner, but you want to sew right to that corner on either side. So we're going to do this with all 4 pieces of our piece G and both of our pieces of piece E and F. Okay, so we should now have piece G sewn to piece E, but we should not have piece F sewn yet. So piece F should not be sewn yet. So now that you have piece G sewn to piece E, we need to clip right into this corner. Kind of like how you do a zipper, whenever you're doing a zipper pocket on the inside, when you've got to turn everything right side out, and you need to clip into the corner. So we need to clip right into that corner, right up to our stitches, but don't go past them, and don't clip your stitches. Okay, so right into the corner. The neater this cut is, the better it will be when we go to line this up with piece F. So just like that. So now we're going to take and we're going to pull piece G around and line it up with piece F, just like we did before. And what you'll notice is that piece F or piece G and piece F should be nice and straight with one another. It can be a little troubling to do, but you can do it. Okay, so just like that. So you can see we've got piece G here, piece F, show you from the back side. And now we need to sew again from that point that we made all the way up at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. If you made those marks, this will be really easy. So you're going to do that on all 4 sides. And then afterwards, we're going to turn this right side out and we're going to top stitch this in here. Okay, so on all 4 sides, and then we'll come back. Okay, so now we have piece F, piece E, and piece G. We've turned piece G out and we've top stitched it. So you should have 2 pieces that look just like this. Piece F is going to be our inside pieces. Piece E is going to be our outside pieces. And the way you can tell those apart is piece F is smaller than piece E. So this is going to be attached to our zipper pocket, and this will be the top part of the bag. So what we need to do is we need to add some double-sided sticky tape along the straight edge of piece F and piece G on both pieces. And then we're going to take a zipper, one of your long zippers. You should have the center marked already. And we're going to base stitch it to piece E and piece F, or I'm sorry, to piece G and piece F. And then you're going to take your top lining gusset, okay, and you're going to stitch that along this piece here. So along this piece here, at a 1/4 inch, we're going to turn it around to the back side and top stitch it. Okay, so now that we have our top lining gusset, so this is our top lining gusset, attached to our zipper, and our zipper attached to piece F. Remember, piece F is your smaller piece. We're going to go ahead and sew these in place at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And so now we're going to turn this piece to the back side. So turn your pieces wrong side together. And you can take and roll these seams out of the way with a seam roller. If you're using canvas or cotton, you can use an iron to iron these back. What I will take note on is these sections right here, they're pretty thick, so you may want to take a seam presser and really press those out, or a pair of seam pliers and press those out real good before you top stitch, because you may end up skipping stitches across that seam right there. So go ahead and do your other one, top stitch both of these, and then we'll be ready to continue on with the rest of it. Okay, so now we should have something that looks like this. I went ahead and put my zipper pulls on as well. So you'll want to go ahead and do that for this next step, but you should at least have it all top stitched and ready at this point. So now what we want to do is we want to flip it over to where we can see the back side of our top lining gusset, and we want to pull out piece D. Okay, this is the lining gusset for the first pocket that we're going to make. And we want to take and line up piece D with our top lining piece. Okay, so the short side with the short side. So just like this. So you can see there's our zipper in there. We are not attaching it to the exterior, just to the lining. So do that on the other side. Okay, so just like that. Again, we're not attaching this to our exterior piece at all. So now what we want to do is we want to pull this exterior out of the way, and we want to sew across our lining at 3/8 of an inch on all 4 pieces. Don't sew all the way across attaching to your exterior. You want to sew just your lining piece. So the lining top gusset piece and the lining gusset piece. Okay, we'll end up closing up this zipper part later, but for right now we just need to sew just the lining pieces together. Kind of show you that. So just the lining pieces together. Okay, so now we should have our lining gusset attached to our top lining, or our top lining zipper gusset. That's a mouthful, but we should have this attached. And what you'll notice is that you have this hole that's here. Don't worry about that. We're going to end up sewing this closed later on. For now, I want you to take and pin your exterior piece out of the way. I have found it far easier to add these next pieces if the exterior side gusset is not attached to the bag just yet. So I just take and pin this out of the way, and we're going to attach piece B. So piece B to, whoops, wrong way, right sides together to our lining piece and to our side gusset piece. Okay, so just line your centers up each and then ease all of this into the curve of B. In all honesty, this never really seems to work out quite well for me. If you end up with a pucker or if you end up with a purposeful dart, let it stay. It's not that big of a deal. It's the inside of the bag. On all 3 bags that I've made so far, I have a dart that I end up with down here at the bottom. Just let it stay. Keep moving. It's not that big of a deal. So we're going to do that to both sides, to this side, and then we're going to attach it to this side as well. You will not leave a hole in this lining at all. You're going to sew it all the way around at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so now we should have our first pocket created, where we've got our zipper here at the top. We've added our B panel here to both sides. I went ahead and trimmed my seam allowances down with a pair of pinking shears. You don't have to. There's enough room inside of the purse once we add that second gusset that if you were to leave your seam allowances intact, it would be perfectly fine. But see, even I end up with a dart here in my corners. Perfectly fine. You're not really going to notice that on the inside of the bag. So now that we've got this done, it'll be much easier to go ahead and add our exterior gusset across here on either side. So go ahead and pull out piece C. And just like we did with the lining, we're going to add piece C here to just our exterior. We're not going to add it to our interior pieces. And we're just going to sew up to our zipper. We're not going to sew past it. We're going to end up closing this hole up here in a minute. So you're going to attach piece C here to your exterior panel on both sides. And then we're going to turn this right side out. We're going to add our D-rings inside of here where the zipper is at. Okay, obviously on the inside of it, not the outside of it, but we're going to add that there. So let's go ahead and attach our piece C to our top zipper gusset. And then when we get back, we will add the D-rings and sew across the zipper portion here. So we'll end up sewing right across here with the D-rings attached. Okay, so now that we have our gusset attached to our zipper gusset, we still have this hole here that we need to close up. But before we do that, we want to grab our D-ring connectors. If you're using these, you may not be using these on your purse, but you want to grab these D-ring connectors and slide them in between your zipper here and your gusset. So hopefully you left a big enough hole to be able to do that. Looks like I did, thank goodness. And you want to slide it down, not all the way, but as far as you can get it to where at least it makes sense. So I'm actually using where I stitched this across as a guide for how far I need to go down. So we're going to do that on the other side as well. So again, same thing. We're going to slide it in between our zipper here and our gusset. So just like that. So now we need to close our hole up. So we're going to turn this right side out, or wrong side out, I guess you could say. And then we are going to stitch from our lining side, kind of poke all this out to where it needs to be, from our lining side, from where we stopped here to where we stopped here. Okay, so you should have 2 open stitches there. If you want to cut this away a little bit to make it a little bit flatter, you can go ahead and do that. In fact, I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So we'll just take and snip this away some so that this will lay flat for us. So just like that. So you can see here, I've got an open spot here. So I'm just going to sew right across here to close that hole up. You're going to do that on both sides, and that will catch your D-ring for you. Once you've done that and you've sewn across here to close this up, you're going to turn the gusset right side out this way, and then top stitch across your gusset here. Okay, so now you should have something that looks a little funky, but should look just like this here. You've got your exterior gusset on there, you've got it sewn and top stitched. I actually was not able to top stitch mine because mine got a little thick, so I had to skip the top stitching. So hopefully you were able to top stitch yours. So we now want to open our zipper pulls here on the top, and we want to turn this wrong side out to where you've got something that looks like this. So you've got your exterior part here. If you want to take and push this down so that it's right side out inside there, kind of that way. So it's just kind of tucked in there a little bit, just to make sure that you don't have this big tall thing on top of it. So now what we're going to do is you want to grab either your back panel or your front panel. Doesn't matter really which one you decide to start with, front or back. I'm going to start with my back just because that seems to be a little bit easier. So we're going to line up our panels centered. I'm just going to pop a few clips on here to kind of show you what this is going to end up looking like. When you come here to your gusset, if it's not top stitched, go ahead and separate out those seams. And that'll help that gusset to sit a little bit better. Okay, so now you should have it clipped all the way around. Kind of tilt this up a little bit. So clipped all the way around the top and the bottom. And then you're going to sew from one side to the bottom up to the other top. Do not sew across your top here. Okay, if you sew across your top here, you'll end up closing up your pocket. You can clip it if you want to be able to hold it in place. Just don't sew across that top. So you're going to start sewing. First, you're going to do a seam allowance of 1/8 of an inch. Don't back stitch at the top. Just do a straight 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And then you're going to come back and do 3/8 of an inch. Make sure you back stitch at the top of each side when you start and stop. But don't back stitch for your 1/8 of an inch because we're going to end up pulling some of those stitches out that when we go to fold this down, it'll fold down a lot neater. So let's do that. Okay, so now we should have both our front panel and our back panel attached to our inside gusset. You should not have sewn the top at all. You should have left that open on both sides, as you can see in there. These will end up being zipper pockets. I also went through and removed some of my stitching from my 1/8 of an inch, and I clipped into my seam so that I can fold this out this way later on. Okay, and I did that on all 4 corners here. Okay, just like that. That way this will end up being less bulk in that area if we can separate those seams out like that. So now the next thing that you're going to want to do, hopefully you've already added your 3/4 inch line here, like we did in the earlier part of the video on all of your top pieces. So you can kind of see here where I added that 3/4 inch line. If you have not added your 3/4 inch line, you'll want to go ahead and do that now. That way when we fold this down, we have a line to fold down to. You'll also want to go ahead and add some double-sided sticky tape, or if you're going to use glue, you can go ahead and add your glue and fold this down and clip it. I'm just going to use some double-sided sticky tape right along that 3/4 of an inch line just above that line, so that when I fold this down, I'll have something to hold it in place for me, so that I don't have to worry about it shifting later on. So go ahead and set this to the side for now. Pull out your A2 piece, which is your top lining accent, and your A1 piece, which is your 4 lining pieces. You'll want to go ahead and find the centers on all of these. So on all 8 pieces, set that to the side for the moment. You're going to take out your other 2 long zippers, and you want to turn the one end of these down by 90 degrees. So I've already done that, so you can do that when I pause the video, and you can go ahead and turn those down by 90 degrees on both of these zippers. Go ahead and grab one zipper and separate it. I know that's scary, but go ahead and separate it. And grab one top accent and one lining panel piece. Go ahead and set the other ones to the side. With your center marked, you'll need the center to line up for your accent piece, but not necessarily for your zipper. And then you can see also here where I made that 3/4 inch line mark there as well. And go ahead and mark the center for that. Grab your zipper, and we need to attach this zipper to our lining panel. So you need to measure from your edge here, and this is just a quick little tidbit information. If you have a seam allowance of 3/8 inch, so we'll end up having a 3/8 inch seam allowance on this, you want to double that plus 1/4 inch. So for example, if it's 3/8 of an inch, we're going to do 3/4 of an inch plus 1/4 inch, which would be 1 inch in from the side. If it was a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you would do 3/4 of an inch in from the side. That's just a little information there for you in case you are doing other patterns where you may need to know that. But on this one, we're going to mark in 1 inch from either side, and this will give us plenty of room to sew without the zipper getting in the way, and then later on it'll give us plenty of room to tuck the zipper down into the purse too without it getting stuck. Okay, so just make a mark right there, 1 inch in. You can add some double-sided sticky tape in between those lines. Here we go. I had to find the end. So add some double-sided sticky tape. And now we want to add our zipper right side up. Okay, so we want the zipper to be right side up, or you could say wrong side of zipper to right side of lining. And we're going to start our teeth right at that 1 inch mark that we made. Attach that all the way down to the other side. Now you may need to transfer your line that you made over to your zipper just so that you know where to start and stop. Okay, so you can see here I started my teeth right at that 1 inch line, and then I made a mark on this side here, or I transferred the line so that I know to start there. So we're going to start right at that line. We're just going to base the zipper in place. Go ahead and trim your threads. Now, we don't want this tail to get caught up when we go to do our top lining or our top accent piece. So we need to take and tuck this tail down. So what I do is I take it and I'm going to turn it under itself and pull it out of the way. If you do it that way rather than just take and pull it down like that to where it's got this hump here, it's going to be really hard to hold that down while you're trying to sew this on. But then B, your zipper is going to naturally want to kind of stick up when we're done with this. So if you take and just turn it under a little bit more than a 90-degree, and then pin that in place. Just like that. Then it'll kind of want to stay down for you a little bit better. And when we finish this, it'll stay going facing downward into the purse rather than trying to stick out the top. So now grab you some more double-sided sticky tape, or you can just clip this in place. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to add this tape here to the top part, all the way from one corner to the other. And we're going to take and lay our top accent panel piece right side to right side of zipper. Make sure that you're adding the bottom to the zipper and not the top to the zipper. Okay, so bottom lined up and centered. Find my center again. And then make sure that your side edges match up as well. Okay, so just like that. So now you're going to sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When you get done, you're going to flip this up to where your seam allowance is pointed down, and you're going to top stitch across. You'll do that to all 4 pieces. And then before we go on to the next step, make sure that you again add your double-sided sticky tape just to that 3/4 inch line as well. Okay, so now we should have our top lining accent added to our lining panel with our zipper, and we should have that top stitch, so that nice top stitching. You do want to go ahead and pin your zipper out of the way. You're going to match 2 of these panels up and make sure that you're matching your zippers correct. So you have your zipper stop here and your zipper tails down here. Now, if you have special pockets that you want to put together, make sure that you put those pockets together. But we're going to match 2 of these panels up, and we're going to pin them the sides, the bottom, and up the other side. And then we're going to sew this at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now, if you're going to do the birthing method, you'll want to leave a hole in one of these linings so that you can birth the bag out later. But because we're doing a drop-in lining, so we're going to fold our edge over to that 3/4 inch seam, we're not going to leave a hole in our lining at all. But if you are going to birth it, then you do want to leave that hole. After you sew this, you'll want to trim down your seam allowance below your top accent piece, down around the corners and up the other side. But you'll want to leave your top lining piece intact so that we can fold this over later on after we're done stitching it. So let's do that. Okay, so now we have both of our lining panels sewn together, and I went ahead and trimmed down my seam allowances all the way, but again, leaving that top lining panel connected. I did make a small snip here in the side, just so it makes it easier to open the seam up when we go to tape it back on all of these. So just like that. So now we're going to grab our, our bag. And where we made that 3/4 inch line, we need to go ahead and put tape along that 3/4 inch line. So double-sided sticky tape all the way around here and on the inside here at the top, all the 3/4 inch marks all the way. And then what I did is I went ahead and opened up my seams here on the side and added tape across there as well. So we're going to do that to our lining panels. We're going to add that tape here. Open those seams up and fold them back and add some tape across just to hold that there. And then we're going to fold this down to our 3/4 inch line here at the top. We're also going to turn our shell right side out, and then we're going to slip our linings down into the bag. So let's go ahead and add our tape, get our seams folded down and held in place, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how we're going to drop this lining in. Okay, so now we have our top accent piece folded over to that 3/4 inch line with double-sided sticky tape, and then I just add some clips to hold it in place. We've also done the same with our shell, our exterior shell. So again, folded everything over to that 3/4 inch line on both sides. Your strap should be up, not down, so make sure that's the case before we move on. So from here, the only thing that's left for us to do is to simply drop the linings down into our purse. Now, if you're doing the birthing method, you'll do this a little bit differently, but you're just going to drop this down in there, and I just take my hand and kind of push it down, just like that. And then you're going to line up this seam here is going to line up with this seam here. So this is your exterior panel. This is the gusset for your zipper. So that lining seam needs to line up with this seam here on all sides, on all four sides. So when you're doing that, just make sure that you're using that point as a quarter marking, as well as your halfway markings here on your lining. You'll line those up with the centers of your other pieces. So you're just going to simply drop this down in there, line everything up, give it some good clips, or you can use some double-sided sticky tape to hold all this in place. Clip it, tape, however you want to do it, glue it, and then you're going to top stitch all the way around the outside and into the inside here on all of these. So go ahead and do that, get it all top stitched, and then we'll take a look at her. Okay guys, we finished our bag and here it is. The last thing is for you to add your zippers to your inside pockets along with your zipper ends, and then tuck your zippers down into the bag. She came out absolutely fantastic though. Kind of bring her a little bit closer for you. Absolutely gorgeous. I love that red with the Dalmatian vinyl. It came out so good. I'll kind of show you the inside here. So we have our zippers on the insides and our zipper here on the top, zipper here on the front, and then you may have also chosen to put some zipper or slip pockets on the inside of your bag. I really hope that you enjoyed learning how to make this bag with me today. If you did, be sure to give it a big old thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to my channel, smash that subscribe button and click that bell so that you can get all the latest updates of when I add new videos. Thanks so much and have a great day.